start Surah Imran, and this is not even the start of Surah Imran. This is actually the 24 ayahs after you start Surah Imran. So there has to be a reason why we're starting right in the middle of Surah Imran. And the reason is we are actually in a continuation of what we were doing before. So all the ayahs before this ayah we have completed in different courses that we have done. So in this course we start from this ayah because we are continuing from where we left. So although this is a new course and we are starting this new course, but we are starting from this point because we've already done all these ayahs previously, and all these ayahs are there on the web as well and on our website. So that is why we are starting from this ayah. Now, the way we do this class, for those who are new in this class, and you should be paying attention, the young ones also, that in this class, when we begin this class, first we do the translation of the previous class. So when you do the translation of the previous class, you will do the translation of the previous class. Not today because you were not here for the previous class, today is your first class. But after this class, every class, the first few minutes is going to be attendance, and we recap the last class, and you will recap the last class. So that is why you should all have a workbook with you, and you will be given a workbook, inshallah, if not today, in the next class. All of you will have a workbook which will have the Arabic written. So you will write down the English translation underneath. There will be some space. You can also write down the tafseer that I mentioned here, inshallah. So you will have everything written. So the next class, when I ask you questions about the last class, you will have something written on your workbooks and you can answer that. So this is how we will be going. So today, because today is the first class, so we will start from my side. There will be no recap of the last class. And we will start from this 24th ayah of Surah Al Imran. Al Imran means the family of Imran. Imran alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah. So this is the surah which is named after this beautiful prophet of Allah, Imran alayhi salatu wasalam. And before I start this ayah has a connection to the previous ayah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the Jews. And Allah ta'ala is mentioning what they did wrong. So this ayah also mentions things which they did wrong. And now I will start with this ayah. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Assalamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa, amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Dhalika bi annahum qalu lan tamassana an-naru illa ayyaman ma'dudat. And Allah Ta'ala says, Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Dhalika bi annahum, and this is because qalu, they said, lan tamassana an-nar, the fire will not touch us, illa ayyaman ma'dudat, except for a few days. So Allah Ta'ala is mentioning the Jews, that they would say that because we are from the family of the prophets, the Bani Israel was a name of one of the prophets. Actually, Israel was the name of Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. And they said that because we are from the family of Israel, we belong to the family of the prophets. And in a hadith it comes that there were more than 10,000 prophets in Bani Israel. So there were more than 10,000 prophets. So they thought that, oh, my forefathers, and for some of them, my grandfather or my father is a prophet. So they said, the fire will not touch us. No matter how many sins we do, no matter what we do, because we are the sons of the prophets, we belong to the family of the prophets, that is why the fire will not touch us. Now this is a very wrong concept, because in the deen of Islam, and even in the deen of all the previous prophets, we will be judged according to our actions. Fatima Raziyallahu anhu, the beloved daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, once told the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, that you are my father, and because you are my father, I fear for myself in the afterlife, and are you going to help me on that day of judgment? And the Prophet ﷺ replied that, O Fatima, your deeds are going to help you. So even the Prophet ﷺ told his own daughter that only your deeds can actually help you on that day of judgment. Then how can they say that because we belong to the family of the prophets, nothing is going to happen to us, the fire is going to touch us only for a few days? So even if we do the biggest amount of sins, nothing will happen to us. This is actually arrogance. This is, you think that because you belong to such big families, nothing is going to happen to you. And this is actually lying. And they knew that this is not correct, but they would lie. And arrogance and lying, they go together. An arrogant person has to lie. He has to hide things, right? Because if you're arrogant, you don't want to show anything that is negative about yourself. So for that, you have to deceive people, you have to lie to people. And lying is not something small in Islam. Lying is a very big sin. We consider it as a very small sin. We consider drinking alcohol as a very big sin. We consider fornication as a very big sin, right? We consider, robbery or stealing things as a very big thing, right? But the reality is that some of the sins that we do from our tongue, they are even bigger than these sins. The Prophet ﷺ said, backbiting is even worse than adultery. So we consider adultery as a very big sin. But we backbite every day. And about lying, the Prophet ﷺ said, the person who lies, he will never become close to Allah and His Messenger. So the one who lies can never become close to Allah and His Messenger. And the Prophet ﷺ said that there are 3 signs of the munafiq, right? And who's the munafiq? Munafiq is a person who is two-faced, right? In reality, he is not a Muslim. But from his tongue, he says that he's a Muslim. So he's a two-faced person. That's what a munafiq is. And the Prophet ﷺ said there are 3 signs of the munafiq. And the first sign is that when he talks, he lies. And the second sign is that when he makes a promise, he does not fulfill that promise. And the third sign is that when he's given things to keep, he actually uses those things. He does corruption with those things. So this is the sign of the munafiq. So arrogance and lying, they go together. Arrogance and deception, they go together. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about these Bani Israel. Right? Boys, no talking in this class. That is why we don't want young boys in the class, because they talk. No talking. And put your foot down. Sit properly. So ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارِ. And this is because they say that the fire will not touch us إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودًا. So this is pure arrogance that you say that the fire will not touch us. And the reality is that not only this is not going to help you being from the family of the prophets, even good deeds, it has to be done in such a way that it should earn reward. if you do good deeds, and then after doing those good deeds, you think that you are somebody very superior to others, then those good deeds are not acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ, that Allah ta'ala only accepts the deeds of those who fear Allah. So even if you do good deeds, and very good deeds and big deeds, but still you have to show fear. Still you have to be fearful that whether my deeds will be accepted by Allah or they might not be accepted by Allah. So sometimes we do good deeds and we think now we have a ticket to Jannah. This is not like this. Yes, you can think like this, that, oh Allah, you have given me this tawfiq of doing this good deed, so I thank you. So now this is a show that this good deed is not mine, it is an opportunity given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you have this, that you do shukr to Allah, that, oh Allah, you have given me this opportunity. So sometimes people go for Hajj, now they think that they are the most pious people in the world. Well, in hadith it comes that yes, all the sins are forgiven when you go for Hajj. But it does not mean that you should think yourself that I am the most pious one. So only the deeds of those people will be accepted who fear Allah. So that is why there was a story of, there's a incident of a worshipper of Bani Israel. And he had an age of more than 200 years. And he worshipped Allah for 200 years. And he's even mentioned in the Quran. In those times the ages were more. They were in hundreds, right? Some people. Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, the age of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam was more than 900 years. So people had older ages, people had longer ages. So this worshipper, his name was Balam Ba'ur. And he's even mentioned in the Quran that he worshipped Allah for 200 years. After 200 years, he uttered a single line of arrogance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rejected all 200 years of worship. And Allah ta'ala mentions him in the Quran by these words. Allah ta'ala says, فَمَثَلَهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ, and his example is the example of a dog. This is what Allah ta'ala tells about this man. A man who worshipped for 200 years. Why? Because there was arrogance inside of him. There was no humility. So what Allah wants is, Allah wants you to fear Allah. Allah wants you to be humble in front of Allah. The one who is humble and doesn't do much deeds will still be accepted in the eyes of Allah. And the one who's arrogant but does a lot of deed will not be accepted in the eyes of Allah. So that is why the big mashaykhs, those people who've spent all their lives worshipping Allah, doing the work of deen, even they would be fearful of Allah. And this is a secret that one has to learn. That you should also be doing good deeds, but at the same time, you should not become arrogant. So this is something to be learned, right? Generally people do good deeds and then they feel that I am better than others. This is not how Islam teaches us. When you do good deeds, you should still feel that you are less than others. That is why Junaid Baghdadi rahimahullah, and he is called the Sultanul Awliya. Among the pious people of Allah, he is called the king of those people. So his piety was so unmatched. And he was among the biggest scholars of his time. And he was one of the biggest mashayikh of his time. And then, it so happened that there was a drought. There were no rains. And all the agriculture had died. No, nothing to eat. And then animals were dying, even humans were dying. So the situation was very bad. It was one of the worst famine of its kind. So people went to the scholars to ask them that what we should do in this time. What should we do in this time? And how we can overcome this drought, how we can overcome this loss. How can we attract the mercy of Allah? So the scholar said, there's one way. And they said that we have thought about this. and we think that there is somebody whom Allah dislikes very much. There's a very big sinner in our city, because of whom Allah's mercy is not descending on us. If that sinner leaves the city, then Allah's mercy is going to descend. So when these scholars, they said this, and Junaid al-Baghdadi rahimahullah, one of the biggest Shaykh of his time, the one who's guided thousands of people to the right path, when he heard this, he left the city and he went outside of the city and he made dua to Allah. Oh Allah, the biggest sinner of the city has left the city. Oh Allah, please have the mercy of your rain flow on these people. So when he made this dua, Allah Ta'ala put in his heart, and he was sent a message in his dreams or whatever, that, oh Junaid Baghdadi, because you showed such fear of Allah, you showed such humility, we elevate you among the ranks of all the mashaykhs of your time. So when somebody shows humility, Allah Ta'ala accepts the deed. When you don't show humility, then Allah Ta'ala rejects the deed, even if you've done 200 years of worth of worship. So one of the biggest lessons of the Quran is to show humility. The mashayikh have said that the one who looks at himself with favor, right? This is a very important saying of the mashayikh, that the one who looks at himself with a look of favor, Allah Ta'ala's look of favor strays away from him. So when you look at yourself as a person who you think of yourself as very good, then Allah Ta'ala's eye of mercy strays away from you, goes away from you. So it is very important to realize, it is a secret that one has to learn, how to do good deeds and at the same time be humble in front of Allah, to make these deeds accepted in the eyes of Allah. In the Quran, Allah Ta'ala mentions a story of a very pious few people, those people who fought in the path of Allah. And they were very few, and people who were against them were very large in numbers. And they fought and they tried to convince other people, and they spent a very big part of their lives in this work of deen, and Allah Ta'ala gave them success. So when they were successful, Allah Ta'ala mentions about them, that after they were successful, what did they do? And Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ قَوْلِهِمْ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا. That after they were successful, after many years of doing this work of deen, Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ قَوْلِهِمْ, there was nothing on their tongues except for إِلَّا رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا. O our Lord, forgive us for our sins. So those people who are accepted in the eyes of Allah, they have learned this secret. They are now experts at this, that you do good deeds, at the same time you don't think of yourself as somebody high. You think of yourself still as somebody low. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man tawaza'a lillahi rafa'ahu Allah." The one who shows humility in front of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates him. So this is a secret that one has to learn, that you have to be humble and you have to lower yourself in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gain Allah's merciful look. Allah Ta'ala says, وَقَرَّهُمْ فِي دِينِهِمْ. And they were deceived in their deen, right? Those who said that the fire will not touch us, right? Except for a few days. Allah Ta'ala, they were deceived in their deen. مَا كَانُوا يَفْتَرُونَ. Because of that which they plotted, right? And they had made up this whole idea that the fire will not touch us. And they were in some sort of deceit. It was not something that they were deceived by their own arrogance. And this is what happens. An arrogant person always gets deceived. One has to stay away from arrogance. This is the main message of this ayah. That one has to learn how to be humble. And the Prophet ﷺ always used to show humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a hadith it comes that the Prophet ﷺ was even the Prophet when Adam was not even born. This is also hadith. But even then the Prophet ﷺ used to show humility. And the Prophet ﷺ used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you should worship in a very humble way. And Aisha radhiyallahu anha said to the Prophet, O Prophet of Allah, Allah has forgiven all your deeds. The one you've done before, the one you will ever do. Why do you have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the Prophet ﷺ answered that I have to show my humility. I have to show shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the teaching of Islam, the real teaching of the Quran, the real message of the Quran. The one has to show humility. Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah was a very big muhaddis of his time. All of you know what muhaddis is? Who is a muhaddis? Muhaddis is a person who narrates hadiths or who teaches hadith is called a muhaddis. Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah was a very big muhaddis, and in his dars of hadith, sometimes there would be 40,000 people listening to hadith. And those times were not times of electricity. This is, we're talking about 1,000 years ago. So people used to hear the lecture through mukabbirin. Mukabbirin are people who call out, right? So when Abdullah ibn Mubarak used to deliver his lecture, there would be a person standing in front and he would deliver it further. Then there would be a person standing behind him, he would deliver it further. And the number of mukabbirin sometimes would reach more than 1,200 people. This is how big his dars used to be. This is how much famous this man was. This was his acceptance in the eyes of Allah. And Sufyan as-Sawri rahimahullah, one of the biggest scholars of his time, used to say that Abdullah ibn Mubarak, I have watched his life. I have observed him from very close. And I see that in his life and the life of the Sahaba, there is no difference. Except for one thing, Abdullah ibn Mubarak didn't get a chance to see the Prophet ﷺ, and the Sahaba, they got a chance to see the Prophet ﷺ. Other than that, his life is exactly the life of the Sahaba. So this is how big this Shaykh was. When he was about to die, his whole life was spent in the service of the deen. And he had shown the right path to maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And he was the biggest Shaykh of his time. Thousands and thousands of students and people used to love him. Even now, those scholars, those people who know him, they love him. Even 1,000 years later, 1,000 years later, even still people love him. So he's a very big Shaykh of his time, very big scholar of his time. When his last moments came, he was on his bed and there were his students right next to him. He told his students that, oh my dear students, put me on the floor. Now the students, they said, oh our teacher, oh our Shaykh, you are in such a difficult situation. You are in such pain. If we put you on the floor, you will be more in pain. So it will be more difficult for you. So they were trying to force him to be on the bed, and he was saying that, no, put me down. So he still insisted that, no, put me down. So then the students, out of respect, they held him and they put him down on the floor. When they put him down on the floor, they were all surprised that he started making dua. But they were surprised at the words of his dua. And look at the words of his dua. What he did was, he started crying. And he started, touching his cheek on the ground. And the ground was all mud. And he started, hitting his cheek on up. And he was crying. And this is what he was saying to Allah. Oh Allah, have mercy on the old age of this old man. have mercy on the old age of this old man. And why he was saying this? He could have said, if he had not learned the secret of humility, he would have said that, oh Allah, I have done such and such work of deen. There's millions of students that I have. And I have taught people this book of hadith. And I have taught people this. And I have done this work of deen. And I have done, at this last moment, put me into Jannah. But no, what did he say? Oh Allah, have mercy on the old age of this old man. So our Mashaykh, these scholars, they have learned the secret that if you want to get your deeds accepted in the eyes of Allah, then you will have to show humility. When you fear Allah, then deeds are accepted. When you don't fear Allah and you say things like that, fire is not going to touch us only for a few days. Even if you do many sins, nothing is going to happen to us. This is arrogance. Even the good deeds are not accepted by Allah when you have arrogance. So this is a big lesson that one has to learn. When people go to the Mashaykh or the scholars and they try to become their students, this is one of the three things that the teachers teach them. That this is what you have to learn. So, once, a very big scholar of his time by the name of Qari Tayyib, rahimahullah, he went in the company of Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi, rahimahullah. Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi is considered as one of the biggest scholars of this subcontinent. A very big Shaykh of his time, a very big scholar, has written more than 2,700 books. So very prolific scholar. Qari Tayyib was also a principal of one of the biggest madrasas of the subcontinent. A very big Shaykh, a very big scholar. So he came to the Shaykh and he said to the Shaykh, that Shaykh, I have learned the deen of Islam and I am the principal of such a big madrasa. Allah has given me a lot of wealth. Allah has given me a lot of respect. Sometimes I feel that I have arrogance inside of me. So can you tell me something, some ayah of the Quran that I should read so this arrogance goes out? It doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I feel that I'm better than others. Sometimes I feel that I am more educated than the others. Sometimes I feel I do bigger deeds, better deeds than the others. This comes in my heart. So can you tell me something to read from the Quran so that this feeling goes away? And the Shaykh said, you don't have to read anything for that. So what should I do, Shaykh? He said, when people come to this madrasa that I am sitting in, and when you also come, the only thing I would ask you to do is, you should go outside and you should line their slippers correctly. When you will touch their slippers and line them, right? And lining the slippers is not the job of the principal of a very big madrasa, right? Lining the slippers is the job of a very, in the worldly terms, a lower person, right? So when you will do these things which will show humility, then humility is going to enter into your heart. So this is one of the things the scholars teach you, that you have to show adab and you have to show respect to the elders. Then this arrogance goes outside of the heart. So this is one of the biggest lessons of the Quran, biggest messages of the Quran, that this arrogance has to leave you. I will end this class with one last hadith, and then inshallah I will do the translation of this ayah and we'll finish off this class. The Prophet ﷺ has said, and you have to be very, very attentive to this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ has said, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. That person is not going to enter into Jannah even if he has an iota of arrogance inside of his heart. So this is not something optional, that we have to get rid of this arrogance. It is something which is compulsory. We have to get rid of this bad, disease that is inside of our heart. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in getting rid of this spiritual disease. May Allah ta'ala help us do amal on this Quran. I will do the translation one more time. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَا النَّارِ. And this is because they would say that the fire will not touch us إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, except for a few days. وَغَرَّهُمْ فِي دِينِهِمْ, and they were deceived in their deen. مَا كَانُوا يَفْطَرُونَ, because of that which they plotted. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. This is the end of our first class. Inshallah, from next class onward, the first part, you will do the recap and then I will do the translation. Inshallah, Jazakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I have a question for you.